Okay, so other attacks that they're doing constantly between these videos and during those videos that I don't even mention. So right now they're playing Pac-Man music. They're playing the whoa, whoa, the woo, 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 woo. You're not eating any power pellets, and you're just like woo, 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 woo. And they're doing the playing that right now. That's not schizophrenia. Schizophrenia doesn't do that. Not to my knowledge. And before they were playing the World 1-2 or World-2 Super Mario Brothers. They were the original Super Mario Brothers from Nintendo. I'm literally hearing it right now. And they're cutting it up too, so it doesn't necessarily follow exactly. And now they're mixing it with Zelda music. And then one of them also, while I'm describing the music that I'm hearing or mimicking it, one of them is mimicking it in their human voice. So they're doing the same thing that I'm doing. So I'm literally hearing someone doing exactly what I'm mimicking, and I'm hearing the game music at the same time, in parallel at the same time. But they're playing the Super Mario Brothers dungeon music or the 1-2 music, whatever, castle music. And they're saying now the dungeon music is the Zelda music. They don't call it the dungeon, it's the castle, so whatever. And so they're mixing that up with the Pac music. Now they're going woo 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 woo, that Pac-Man thing. Now they're doing the wah 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 wah. And I'm literally hearing one of them say the same sentence, verbalize the sound effects and the music that I'm verbalizing to you in parallel over the music, or in parallel with the music that I'm hearing. Now they're in the woo 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 woo. Now they're saying centipede, and now I'm hearing a little bit something that might be the centipede music, the thing. When you're hitting something close to one of like the little mushroom things. Now they're playing commercials. They've always played commercials for the past couple of years, I think, but like in the past couple of weeks, especially, they've been ramping that up. And they've even told me ahead of time, we're going to play commercials like a motherfucker. So my hotel room has cable, basic cable, and so I basically switch between Comedy Central and then TBS, and then sometimes TNT. And so they'll play like, you know, Your Friends, or they'll play our South Park Marathon, or The Office, or The Big Bang Theory, and other things. And now they're playing the music to was it Adam and Eve, that's basically an adult sex toy store online that like at 4 a.m. once the reruns of like the shows are over, I think when South Park is over on Comedy Central, Adam and Eve has like a woman that does like basically a 30-minute infomercial, a 30-minute or an hour-long infomercial, and they're playing the theme song to that or whatever, the music to that, because it's very repetitive in it, and sometimes I've fallen asleep to that or woken up to that, or but when that comes on, I'm like, oh, it's 4 a.m. So I hadn't heard it in a while until recently, because normally I'm taking my sleeping pills, Zolpidem, which is generic Ambien, and I take melatonin, because one of each by themselves is not enough, and I'm not going to take 2 Ambien and 2 Zolpidem. I've taken 2 melatonin before, and that still doesn't help, because they're fucking with me all night long. So, but I usually take that so I can get up for work, and I wasn't able to renew my Zolpidem because it didn't have renewals on it, so he's going to have to approve, my doctor's going to have to approve it, and so I'm not going to get that probably until Tuesday or maybe Wednesday. So I'm just on melatonin now. Oh, sorry, the maintenance guy walked by, so I paused it for a second. Hey Max, I love you. Where's Max? Oh, Max has been chewing his tail like a motherfucker, so I don't know if it's them or... I just gave him he doesn't have fleas in his kitten, but I gave him a flea bath nonetheless, because they were like, ooh, because they do things like this. They're like, well, if you do that, then we'll mimic that's the cure for it or the solution to it, and then we'll move on to something else. Sometimes they do that with the migraine thing, and if I don't take an Advil, and they do it all right, then if I do that, and they mock me saying that, and then they literally will verbalize verbatim something like they'll mimic like pretending to be me, pretend to be someone like my father or someone that I'm telling this to, and they'll be like, oh, you had a headache or migraine, and then you took some Advil and then it went away, or ibuprofen and it went away. And so like, oh, that must be gang stalkers, sarcastically. It's like, yeah, it's one of those stupid, asinine, inane things that they do. And now they're playing the Adam Eve song. They're playing the Pac-Man walk, 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 walk. And then now they're making a reference because of the Waka Waka Waka. They're making a reference to Muppets and the Muppet Babies. Now there's the Muppet Show out, and they keep playing commercials, and they keep making me want to make a reference to, because they wanted me to record me watching TV and playing on my phone, like set up 2 cameras, and maybe I will or maybe I won't, just show how like aggravating this is. Now they're doing clicking in my ears. I physically and hearing clicking in these ears is one of the things they do. It's really fucking annoying. It's kind of like the sound of like when you have water in your ears and you're trying to get it out. When it breaks that barrier between like when the liquid comes out and the liquid comes in, it's kind of like that, but a clicking. And I can physically feel that too, and it's annoying as fuck. And I can cover my ear with my hand, and it diminishes it greatly or eliminates it. I don't hear it now. There's a little bit. I hear some getting in there. I don't know how it is, but I'm feeling little taps on my hand, and I'll let it go, and now there's crackling in my ear now. I just started while I was doing that. But the one thing that I keep trying to point out is watching this commercial for, I think, Chase Bank. And they pointed this out because I wasn't even paying attention to it, that there's a scene in there, it's animated, and when the person like is using like the mobile check cashing feature, the check deposit feature, where that some banks have, where you can take a picture of the check and then you can just file the check away or destroy it, because they just get the information on the check. They literally pointed this out. They literally they're obsessed with just being this asinine, just being this aggravating. Is to point out that like one commercial, when the person uses their phone on the check, it lines up with the check, both in the photo, both on the screen of the check and in actuality how it's lined up with the check. Like they're parallel with one another when they hover their phone over the check. And then there's apparently another version that when they hover their phone over the check, the phone isn't technically parallel with the check, but on the camera screen it looks like it is. So I guess I'm gonna have to spend time, not that that's that big of a deal, but it's something that I didn't even notice, and then they pointed it out. So I'm gonna have to go online and look for both versions of those checks and then edit this fucking video and then put that in there to be like, this is what they pointed out, this is one of a lot of things that they do. They're like, look over here, look over there, look at that. Look at that. Isn't this annoying? Is this aggravating? Isn't this annoying that someone's talking to you all day long and like won't shut the fuck up? And they're literally saying that verbatim as I'm saying that to you. I'm literally saying what they're saying, like it's just aggravating as a motherfucker. And now they're playing Pac-Man music again, or the Pac-Man sound effects. Now they're doing the they're doing that, and they're playing commercials after commercials after commercials, the same commercials that play all the time. And it's not a memory recall thing where I'm like, go around a song so I have a commercial in the head. I literally hear the commercials. They do that with songs too, over and over, and they'll take like snippets of it and play it over and over. They're doing that with game music right now, and it's just annoying as fuck. And a lot of times they'll play musical scores to movies. Like they've been playing the one to Beasts of the Southern Wild. They've been doing that for a couple years now. And they're playing it right now. And now they're playing it over like that band song, or that presidential song. And now they're playing Beasts of the Southern Wild in parallel to that. And the climactic score to that repeats throughout the movie. And they like to play that all the time. And they keep it. Sometimes when they do it, they're like, Oprah's gonna be so pissed because Oprah loves this movie. They were so pissed how we bastardized this and like ruined this musical score for this by playing it over incessantly over to you. And they usually play that score when they're doing like a pretend like we're being caught, or we're saying things that are so asinine, so aggravating, so heinous, and so horrible that like, and we're setting ourselves up for a fuck over. Like, oh, they're coming to get us. Oh, we're your dad. This is your dad speaking through them, speaking to you. Blah 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 blah. They do things like that complex. They come up with these super complex things where they act like they're being watched by my dad and other people, and that how the word is spreading, and so like they're getting footage of this, blah 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 blah. Even though it's so important to get the victim to safety over anything and everything, and then so that I hope he's gonna be pissed. They're watching this. So you're like, your dad's pissed. Your dad's getting really super pissed off, and we just shot Kip's right foot, is what they're saying to me right now, because they did just shock my right foot and they're like stings, and then sometimes they're like, oh, the scorpion's gonna come get you. There's a scorpion in your room, it's gonna get you, and then pop, or they don't do it as like as a terrorist thing, like ooh, but isn't it hurt? Isn't like the anticipation, and they'll make a reference to Rocky Horror, and they'll make a reference to how like my dad dragged me down the stairs in Rocky Horror and would chase me around the house. Like I don't know how the fuck they know that, because I didn't tell it to anyone, and they know some details about that, and they keep telling me about details of the things that I don't even remember. So they say that I went to the Tyson Burrell's mother took me to see The Bear with her, her son, and how she sat several rows back, and how we watched that movie, The Bear, and how we enjoyed it and blew it up, whatever. Like until they mentioned that, like I could have never even recalled who I saw that movie with, and I don't even technically know it's true, but it sounds right, because I know that there was at least one time where she took us to a movie and that she watched the movie herself, and that seems like a type of movie that she would watch as well, because I don't even know what other movies we saw together where she took us. I think that was the only one. And like I wouldn't have ever even recalled that or remembered that if I wasn't reminded of that by someone. And I technically don't even know if that's true. But I know that she did take us to one movie one time, and it sat, in the back. And they knew about how she took us to Six Flags a couple times, and how once or twice, and how she sat in her car and like read a book during the day, and how I felt weird about that. And I was like, why doesn't your mom come in the park with us? Or like, that's fine. Or why doesn't... Like she doesn't have to wait in the parking lot all day, but like she didn't seem to mind or whatever. I just felt guilty about it, and they know about that. I've never told anybody about that. Like that's something that I don't even like. I do remember it, but I could probably recall it if someone mentioned like, tell me about past Six Flags visits. I might recall it, but it's something that wouldn't come to mind. But it's something that they know, and they use those things as like that's your dad and everyone that have like provided us that information unbeknownst to us in ways that like as a hang in there thing. And they've been doing that themselves, with false hope for like 3 years now. And so like they've really kicked it up a notch over the past year, or last like a motherfucker, mentioning details about things that like I didn't even remember, like the whole thing with the cartoon drawings when I was a kid, and some of them were like little side view of a penis, like as some kids do when they're very young, and I also drew like cartoon figures of like a blockhead, and like I did like these little stupid little characters, and then I also wrote Jack over it sideways over and over and over again, because I was showing someone, or I was practicing it myself, how you can write Jack in cursive, and then if you look at it sideways and put it like a little dot for the eye, it looks like a person with a hat on. So like the J is the hat, and I've already done this in another video, and which my dad didn't watch, which I asked him to like do. They mentioned that when you were moving, Dad, as if you came across that, as if you, Sandra, or your girlfriend came across that when you were moving and found that thing that had like this, the drawings of the penises, but mostly it had like cartoon, like little stick figure drawings of like in different colors, maybe on construction paper, maybe not. It was just a notebook pad of just like little cartoon characters that I gave names to, like Blockhead and whatever other names they came up with. I didn't even I totally forgot about that. I totally forgot about the Jack thing. I didn't even know those were on the same sheet of paper, and I technically still don't know, but it sounds right when they reminded me of that. Like I would have never remembered that in a million years, ever. I might have remembered one or like the Jack thing, but I don't remember that I kept it on a piece of paper, that I wrote it on that paper. Like I know about that little thing, but like I didn't remember that I wrote that on the same pad of paper, maybe on the same paper itself as those little cartoon drawings that I did, or with the penises on it, penises on it. They recalled that when you were moving, Dad, as if you were going through something, and as if you found that and found it humorous or whatever, and then filed it away or threw it away. I don't know which, but I asked you in the video, and you haven't responded to it. Did it happen? Like, just because it didn't happen to you, with you or Sandra or your girlfriend, doesn't mean they didn't get the information some other way. But if you did, like, I didn't remember that shit, and they brought it up. So that would mean that they're over you watching that shit. Or that you're trying to pass a message of hope to me, blah, 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 which is impossible because you can't do that. It's false hope, because it doesn't take that long to get these people. And now they're playing Pac-Man music in my head again. That is not schizophrenia. Schizophrenia does not do sound effects and morph their voices and create a soundboard of people in your life and blah, 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 and warn about things ahead of time and comment on things before your eyes like really have, before your eyes or before it's in the field of vision of your eyes, and then like you look at it and they comment on it as you're looking towards it, or comment on it before you even know what's about to appear in your field of vision. Like, this guy looks like this guy, and then he comes around the corner or whatever, or comes through a door, or like in jail, it's like, there's a person walking in here that looks like so and so. I look out, oh, I can kind of see that he looks like that person more than me, or you're like, or he does look kind of like that person. I can kind of guess, I can see that out of like the people from my life or that you're looking at. Yes, he looks more like that person than any of the others. But and you like, I'm still suffering, and they're increasing the shocks to my feet, and I literally heard them, like, as I said that right before, they said we're increasing the shocks to his feet, blah 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 blah, and they're increasing the shocks to my feet and the vibrations to them, and it hurts. And they're saying, isn't it like that thing at Dave & Buster's, that little game that you try to hold like the metal handles and it pretends like it shocks you, but it's really vibrating you like a motherfucker, and it's hard to hold on to? I do shit like that all day long. So this is just 15 minutes of this shit, and I haven't even told you everything that they're saying and playing at the same time, because it's impossible, because once I tell you something, I've already forgotten about what the other shit is in between, because they haven't reminded me, or they're doing other shit that, that pulls my attention away from that as I'm trying to describe that, because I want to try to get that out there, and then I forget what other stuff is playing in the meantime. So this is a nightmare that's still continuing, and like, I'm sorry, but I'm not sorry that I'm cussing at you, Robin and Dad and Tom, and like, but you're doing nothing. It's like, you're literally like, pretend that I'm telling the truth, because I am. I've already proven it to you a million different ways, with a million different examples, several different ways, and that would explain my behavior. Like, most of these videos, 99% of them, I'm in a sound state of mind, and in the other ones, I'm still in a sound state of mind. I'm just being fucked with like a motherfucker, and I'm frustrated with you. Like, you're literally sitting there doing nothing. Wouldn't you the hospital? So they can forcibly sedate me again, so they can treat me like someone that hasn't, which you shouldn't treat someone like that anyway, but the way that people treat mentally ill people, it's like, which is abhorrent anyway. It's like, no, that's fucking ridiculous. Last time I was, anyway. But again, doing nothing. And Dad, Captain Butthurt, Mr. gets his butt, gets his, panties in a wad over like things that he shouldn't, or should move beyond. It's like, if you found some of the things I said hurtful, imagine, because I hardly ever do anything like that anyway. So imagine how much pain and how much disappointment and how much of a failure you have been to me, and all of you, over and over and over again, repetitively, to the point where I would say those things. It took years for me to get to that point with you guys, and at least 2 years, and then 3 years, and it's like, yeah, that makes sense now, because like, we didn't do the things that we promised to do. Tom, Dad, Robin, like, you say you talked to Dad and try to convince him, but like, why don't you convince him as if I literally am being tortured and terrorized and physically and sexually assaulted and demoralized and dehumanized and having my dog tortured and traumatized? Because that is the case. Pretend that's the case 100%, because it is the case 100%. Pretend that is literally the case. Like, do you think that your behavior, do you think that you've done enough with Dad? Just talking to him isn't enough. And like, you tell me like, go to bed. I literally texted you saying, I'm trying to fucking sleep while you guys are sleeping, while I would like to be sleeping now. I'm being fucking attacked. And then you're like, well, go to bed. I was in bed when I fucking texted you, idiot. Like, and you can't get your feelings hurt about that. Like, how could you say that to someone? I'm trying to sleep. And then this shit happens, and then you're just like, well, you sleep. Or Tom, you're like, go to the doctor. I've gone to the doctor every year over and over and over again. Every few months, or every few months I've gone to the doctor. And then like you said, and first of all, which shouldn't be a prerequisite for you to tell my dad that you believe me and that he should believe me as well, and to talk him into it and to talk some sense into him and to knock some sense into him and my sister. You said you would do that 3 years ago. You said you would correct the record about how I didn't threaten your daughters or send any threatening text to you at all. You technically never have done that. Sending a bunch of texts praising me and saying that you're not concerned about me and that I'm a wonderful person isn't correcting the record. I corrected the record after that, and I said on that 3-way text last year. And you know what? My dad's like, oh, I still think there's some threatening text. You have all your texts going back years, Tom, because you're an Apple user. You can easily get those texts and get a screenshot of that, so that I can have that, and I can have that in an archive, and that my dad can have that, and you still have literally not told my dad, that is a mistake, Carrie. I was wrong on that. You were wrong on that. We should apologize for that, but we'll never get the opportunity to do so. So we should acknowledge the fact that we've caused a great damage and a great wrong to Kip, among other things. So maybe we should like look at ourselves and the way that we're treating him, and maybe treat him as if he's telling the truth, because he is. I believe him, which you've told me the entire time that you believe me, but you don't act like it. Like, you're not a good friend if you're not doing this. This would take less than an hour of your time, and you've done nothing but tell my dad lies and then act like it's not a big deal. And it's like, if I told your wife, which I'm not going to, but I'm saying as a metaphor, or as a, like, let's turn the tables and see how you would feel. If I told Betsy that you cheated on her and that you threatened bodily harm to me, if I told her about it, and it caused irreparable damage to you guys, at least for years, if not permanently, and then throughout 2 or 3 years, I kept telling you, oh yeah, we cleared it up. I told her that wasn't true, and like, you kept talking to her, and apparently, you know, that didn't happen, and she still believes that you cheated on her and that you threatened me, and then like, then you finally ping me over and over again, and then tell me to text her again, and then all I do is say, Tom's a wonderful person, blah 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 blah, and still don't say that didn't happen, and he didn't threaten me, he didn't cheat on you, and he didn't threaten me, or even if I had done that, I don't think you would be in such a way that you would want to continue to be friends with me ever again. I don't think you would be okay, and I don't think you would be happy if I said, oh yeah, Betsy's a wonderful guy, it's a moot point now, let's move on. There's no way you would be okay with that at all. So I hope you can understand now why I'm upset with you still about last year saying, oh, it's a moot point, let's just move on. When you still didn't even correct the record. When you literally led my dad to believe that I did something so heinous as threatened your little 2 girls, when I didn't even send a threatening text about anyone at all. I was telling how the 2 sketchy girls a few doors down at my apartment at the Grove said I accosted them when I complimented one of the girls, trying to make her smile, because she never smiles when she walked around the corner of the building, and she was a bitch about it. And so that's all I said, and somehow you mistook that, maybe because of them. Again, fibromyalgia, Tom, that's a subset of symptoms that I have. So you'll never watch this, and like, Robin will watch this, but she won't like tell you to watch this, and tell my dad this, and tell how important it is that, hey, you have literally accused Kip for years of doing something so heinous as threatening Tom's daughters, which he didn't do. Can you understand how that, just that one thing, would upset him, and how he would have every right to throw every curse word at you in the book for like not acknowledging that, and for never apologizing for that? And by the way, you'll never get the opportunity to do so. But why don't you take the opportunity to be a better person? Maybe you can tell them that, Robin. Maybe you can convince them to watch this video and tell them that.